Look at this map. This is the map for Planegea, a prehistoric campaign setting for 5e, and I like it so much that I printed out a larger version and framed it on my gaming room wall. I've been running a campaign in this setting, and I'm having a blast. There are no knights, no kingdoms, just roaming tribes, dark magic, and, of course, big lizards. If you're new here, I've got two previous videos on Planegea that you can check out in a playlist in the top right corner or down in the doobly-doo. Today, I'm going to talk about locations in Planegea and how you can put this map to use. Hello everybody, Jordan here, the PH is silent, and let's talk about Planegea. This massive tome of a book is roughly 60% Game Master tools, but they're very useful tools. Now, if you're like me, you probably don't know how to run a Stone Age D&D game. I mean, I thought I did, but when I sat down to think about it, all I came up with was like hunting a mammoth for food for the winter. And really, I got that idea from 10,000 BC, which is a movie by Roland Emmerich, and I don't recommend that for human viewing. Right from the get-go, the Game Master section tells you how to break the world. Earthquakes, tidal waves, meteors from the sky. Danger exists everywhere, and if your players are complacent, well then a herd of dinosaurs needs to run through their camp. A tribe attacks in the night to take away resources, or a deadly volcano erupts. Now, the book lists themes such as pulpy action or horror or mystic awe that you can kind of wrap a campaign around. And there are tools to coincide with those themes. So if your group wants to be larger than life and like wrestle a T-Rex, well, they can, and that sounds awesome. So why not do that? Or if fear and dread are your playstyle, then you can lean into that with the unknown literally being all around you. Now, a major idea of Planegea is that the 4 elemental planes are slowly being pulled apart, and in the middle of that is the prime material plane being freshly created. So here is where our story takes place. If you go too far north, south, east, or west, you'll eventually run into the budding elemental planes. Geography in Planegea is sort of in flux. As players traverse Planegea, the lands can shift. Players might be confused on where that one thing once was, and that's normal. It's kind of encouraged. You might take several months traveling in one direction, but a few weeks to return. You could travel a familiar path and suddenly find yourself lost. This is not a hex crawl by any means. Planegea is not pre-written. It is yours to build and destroy as you wish. In that idea, the author provides a wilderness dice drop aid to kind of flesh out areas for you. You drop a handful of dice on a piece of paper, you roll on some tables to connect certain dice by certain paths or trails, and in this way you're creating a point crawl for your players, but it's unique to your game and it can be updated or removed if the landscape changes drastically. Now, because of this, a journey across Planegea could be considered a dungeon of sorts, each little area its own micro-adventure. Distance isn't really super important, or at least it wasn't important for me, but the number of events it took to get there was important. So let's look at some of the locations. Again, I love this map, and there are some notable places to visit. Now, at high level, Planegea is one world. And I don't mean high level as in levels, I mean like from a outside perspective. And you can walk in this world to the outer edge of the planes of existence and easily cross into them. Now, the center of Planegea is the World Heart Dragon, who slumbers underneath, and it is by her power that Planegea grows and expands. She supposedly is within or underneath Blood Mountain, which is an enormous volcano that resides in the center of Planegea. Now, you can see it from all directions as magma pours forth, and dragons reside here, both good and evil. It is said when Blood Mountain first erupted, it was not lava, but the stars in the sky that spew out of it. The black night sky in Planegea is known as the Sea of Stars, and if you walk to the edge of Planegea, you could be swept up into the Sea of Stars and become part of the night sky. The sky is weird, and stars at night fight each other for supremacy of the sky, and when one is victorious, that star gets to remain in the sky and becomes the sun until the following nightfall, and then the process repeats itself. Now, beneath Blood Mountain is a giant chasm known as the Venom Abyss. This area is a dangerous and dark jungle, full of dinosaurs, apes, and gigantic poisonous beasts. There are carnivorous plants and poisonous vines that envelop the abyss. There is a canopy overhead that some humanoids have made their home on, but they don't really go deeper. To go deeper is to visit oozes and monstrosities of enormous size. This is also the location of the Unfalls, where the 5 great rivers flow upward out of the Venom Abyss, towards the edges of Planegea. These rivers are the bear, ape, lion, ox, and eel. Now, water surges upward and cuts across Planegea. The Venom Abyss is home to goblins, and they live kind of in their tunnels, and there are some humanoid clans that worship dragons, and they live on the canopy portion of the Venom Abyss. Now, zooming out the edges of Planegea, we have the 4 elemental wastes and the empires of the giants. There is the stone, fire, air, and sea empires, and these are ruled by giants of the corresponding element. Now, tribes in Planegea, they stay away from the wastes because big, scary giants rule them, and that's spooky. So the Sea Empire is known as the Brine Waste. It is a dark sea home to great coral undersea palaces and the Merid, the water genies. The Quake Waste is past the Stone Empire, gigantic mountains that seem to touch the sky. The Dow genies live here, who enslave mortals to tunnel and work in mines. The Scorch Waste is a burning hellscape. The Afridi genies are here, and they have a war with the giants of the Fire Empire. And finally, the Wind Waste is a giant white windstorm with floating sky caravans and the Jinn. The Air Empire giants trade with the Jinn for various trinkets. In between these, or I should say the ones that are connected on the sides, there's kind of like para-elemental planes. There is the Fang of Rock and Flame, which would be the equivalent of the Plane of Magma, the Fang of Sand and Wind, which would be the Plane of Dust, the Fang of Shadow and Thunder is the Plane of Ice. It's air and water. It's not really that icy, but that's what it is. And finally, there is the Salt Fang and the Slime Fang, which are the Plane of oozes or swamps. Now, each giant empire in the book has a level range for adventuring and also notable locations for you to visit. The known world to mortals is caged off by these elemental giants, and invading a giant empire as a raiding party would be a rather great adventure. There's also a Feywild Shadowfell kind of realm too. It's known as Nod, and it is the world of dreams and the world of nightmares. So it would be home to Fey, undead, aberrations, and some humanoids. Nod is where many elves have come from and originated from. There is power and magic there. It can be very dangerous. A lot of cursed items come from the land of nightmares, cursed creatures too. There are fun templates in here that you get to apply to certain monsters. So if I have a monster from the realm of nightmares, I can give it modifications like amorphous or strength drain. So we could take a regular bear and make it a nightmare bear that when it attacks you, it saps your strength with each bite. And I like that a lot. They have these different templates that you can apply to various monsters to make them feel as if they're part of the elemental or geographical location they're in. Another part of Planegea is known as the Kingdom of the Dead. It's an invisible world ruled by the Skull King, and those who break taboos are sent here. There's also the lost are sent here, or the unmourned seem to find their way here. It is not a place you want to end up, and it gives, from my perspective, grieving a very important part of Planegea. The rituals and how you treat the dead become even more important when you know that if you are unmourned, that you might wind up in this hellish scape of death. Now, the authors of Planegea and fans of Planegea have reached out to me, and I wanted to highlight to you where you can go to learn more and get more information about Planegea. So first of all, a lot of people in the comments were saying it's a shame that this isn't supported and there's not more things out there. There are. The authors of Planegea, the creators, have some kind of deal with Atlas Games, and they are able to create new content for it, and they can sell this on their Patreon. So if you subscribe to their Patreon, this is not a sponsorship. I personally am not subscribed, but do as you will. There's more stuff out there, but they have extra subclasses, they have adventures, they have a whole bunch of information on lore and things like that. So check it out. Now, the best place to go would be the Planegea subreddit, which will have links to everything else that we're talking about, the Discord, the Patreon, the adventures, etc. So there are lots of stuff, and if you look at, although the Planegea community is, I would say, a small community in the D&D sphere, it is a very active community. Now, exploration for me would be a key factor for a Planegea game. I just really like that you have no idea what's on the other side of that hill, on the other side of that mountain. It's so cool. I really like the idea of raiding a giant empire for resources. I mean, let's think about it. What if one day the World Heart Dragon woke up? How would your party handle that? What if all the stars left the sky and there was no sun, no daytime for weeks? I mean, that could be a great adventure of going out, figuring out how to get to the Sea of Stars and finding out what happened to the literal sun. But I've been planning this for a while, and I think my next campaign that I'm going to run with Planegea is going to focus on the Venom Abyss and maybe the origins of the Spider Queen. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thank you so much for subscribing and liking this video. If you want to support me further, I do have a Patreon where you can catch some of the things that I have been working on. Lately, I have been writing new versions of a tabletop RPG that I'm writing, a system called Modular D6 that I hope to have a new version uploaded soon. Right now, that version is just in a bunch of notebooks and I need to transcribe it. If you go to my itch.io page, I wrote a hack of Tunnel Goons called Mecha Goons, where you get to run around in giant mechs. I wrote a lockpicking supplement for 5e that is adapted from the Numenera character creation process. And I'm really think it's fun, so you should go check it out. Thank you again so much. Subscribe for more Planegea content, and I will see you all in the next video.